2 or 3 second delay or so.
I make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, the motion has been made by President Nebeker to approve the agenda as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
That was your cue. Seconded by Councilman Henderson to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. And it appears to be unanimous. Are there any declarations of conflicts at this time? It's not the kind of agenda that would generate that sort of thing, but hearing none. Going on to declaration of council members' discussion outside an open meeting of something that we might be voting on tonight or in the near future. Any of those? Hearing none. All right. As you know, last week I declared a local disaster emergency in accordance with the statute, and you'll have the opportunity tonight to vote on that. There were essentially 3 reasons for that. One, the coronavirus is around us, which by definition makes it imminent. It's close by. It's in Ada County, it's in Canyon County, and tonight it was reported in Fayette. There have been no reports in Gem County at this time. Does that mean we're virus free? Not necessarily. We just don't know yet because a test, anyone who's been tested from Gem County or lives in Gem County has not yet tested positive, or at least we don't have those results. I'm not going to go through the declaration. We posted them. It's on our website. And if the council so elects, they can continue that declaration. Virtually, I think by this time, virtually every county in our area, most of the cities have declared those. And the purpose really is more than just to raise awareness or to say that there's danger. Because quite frankly, the danger here is considerably low under all facts that we know. However, it gives us an advantage insofar as being able to plug in later to federal or state funding for reimbursements and anything that was extra expenses on our part to defeat the virus. And there may also be some advantage with regard to the Small Business Association, other kinds of things for the businesses that are being and will be adversely affected. So that's the reason for that. I would also like to make a quick couple of declarations that don't have anything to do with an emergency. I'm proclaiming April 11th through the 17th of this year as the Week of the Young Child in Emmett, Idaho. And we are doing this in conjunction with the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children and the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And they're celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 11th through the 17th. And these are organizations that work to promote and inspire high quality early childhood experiences. And they can provide a foundation for learning and success for children, not only in Emmett, but certainly throughout the Gem community. And teachers and others who work with or on behalf of young children, I know we all know someone who does that. Some of us have family members who do that, particularly working with children from their birth through age 8. They can make an incredible difference in the lives of young children. And so they deserve our thanks and recognition, and that's why I'm proclaiming April 11th through 17th as the week of the young child. I'm also making a Fair Housing Month proclamation for the month of April. This is the 52nd year of the passage of Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Fair Housing Act, Federal Fair Housing Act. And the Idaho Human Rights Commission has prohibited discrimination in housing since 1969. That's been 51 years. Equal opportunity for all, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, or national origin is a fundamental goal of our nation. State and city, and equal access to housing is an important component of this goal as a fundamental right. And so that is why I'm declaring a Fair Housing Month for the month of April. And it also assists with certain grants that we apply for. So there's a double benefit to declaring that. City Council have anything at this time? The other thing I have is an announcement for the good of the order. I'm not asking for a vote at this time. I'm not really even asking for a discussion. I'm just letting you know, to be transparent, that I've directed the city staff, because of the situation that we're in right now, to delay shutoffs from now until the water shutoffs from now until the April shutoff date, which will be approximately the 25th of April. During this time, all water and sewer charges will still accrue. There's not going to be any forgiveness of debt or anything like that. But if a customer has been recently laid off, this will allow that customer to, for example, to get the unemployment benefits into the pipeline, or such other relief as the federal government may be electing to provide for them. So, just to be clear, it is not a forgiveness of debt, because I don't think we have jurisdiction or the authority to do that. But it is a breather to figure out how customers will pay their bills. As you know, our water and sewer system is funded by enterprise funds. There's no legal authority for us to provide that water free of charge to those who cannot afford it. But we want to give them an opportunity to figure out how they might be able to market whatever assets they can if they're having difficulty, to include making arrangements with the city clerk for making those payments. So if you believe that needs to be taken up at the next meeting or an emergency meeting for that, that's fine, we can do that. But just know that for the benefit of the customers who have been caught in a situation they didn't ask for. None of us asked for this, but we're having to deal with it the best we can. We're doing everything we can, utilizing best practices to that. And frankly, we borrowed from Twin Falls for this particular technique.
Will there be any fines for late payments?
We can discuss that later. All charges accrue at this time. Certainly the basic charges. We can take it up at a later council meeting if you want to change the policy with regard to late fees. That would be a policy thing. But insofar as daily ops, we're just not going to shut people off between now and the 25th of April. Okay, taking up the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes for the 10th of March, regular council meeting, and of course the approval of all accounts payable. Councilman Rosinkin brought his checkbook in today and helped pay those bills. So I want to thank you for that. But for the approval of the consent agenda, the chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Donna?
It's your key, Tony.
Councilman Henderson, can you hear us?
Yes.
We're waiting for your motion.
Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. Councilman Henderson has made the main motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. And Councilman Welch, or Councilor Welch, I guess we call you all councilors now, right? Not to confuse with Jake from State Farm, but Councilor Welch has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
That's a late comer, that doesn't count. Are there any abstentions? No abstentions. Motion is passed. Now, Eric, is it Herringer or Herringer?
Herringer.
Herringer, it's a hard G, is here with regard to the approval to bond for refinance. So come on down. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we're all about refinancing if there's a benefit.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council or councilors.
Yes.
Use that going forward. Yeah, thank you for the evening to present information on this refinancing. Thank you for asking about how I pronounce my last name. I usually just go with whatever you say. So I work for a company called Piper Sandler. Prior to that, it was Piper Jaffray. There was a merger. And prior to that, a company called Seattle Northwest Securities, which was merged into Piper Jaffray. In 2012, when I was with Seattle Northwest Securities, I was working with the city of Emmett and Bruce Evans on a package to get some new money for a project at the wastewater treatment plant. And in that process, we went through the Idaho Bond Bank Authority to refinance a bunch of the city's existing water and sewer debt, as well as issue the new money projects to do those improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. I've been doing municipal bond finance in Idaho since 2002. I've worked with the bond bank as their underwriter for many years. I haven't been their exclusive person, but I don't necessarily represent them. What I can tell you is that we are working with the bond bank and their various professionals to put together a refinancing package for lots of entities that issued bonds to the bond bank over the last 12 to 14 years. Really, there's a sweet spot for the issuers between 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, that those existing bond issues have rates that can be refinanced into lower interest rates. And so we're out talking to the municipalities from Benoit County, Twin Falls, Rexburg, Emmett, you name it, all over the state. One more thing about me, Mr. Mayor, because you asked me to say a few things about myself. I work exclusively in Idaho, so my work is just with Idaho municipalities, and that's where my focus has always been. So I've got a presentation that I shared with Lylene and Clint about how the refinancing project would work. It's kind of an interesting time to be talking about this because about 3 to 4 weeks ago, municipal bond interest rates were as low as they've ever been. I mean, ever. And then as the coronavirus has shaken the financial markets, interest rates have really been volatile, and they've gone up a lot in the municipal bond world. So these are not savings that you could get today. That being said, I think that as we work through this pandemic and how it impacts the financial markets, that the financial markets will return to more normal operations with low interest rates. When we come out of these recessions, we typically have a low interest rate environment. So I would expect that maybe this can't get done today, but in our timeline, we're really not looking to get to the market until August. So, it's a little bit of a long range plan. So let me get to it. Page 2, I've identified these bond refunding candidates. And back in 2012, we did a refinancing of your existing bonds with rural development and that was the 2012 B issue, about 9.3 million. Those bonds have a final maturity of 2040. So at the time, they went out, roughly 28 years. The Series 2012 C was 1.1 million, and that was new money for the wastewater treatment plant. And then in 13, there's the 13A, which was another $1 million. So what had happened there is there had been a 2007 vote, and you still had 1.1 million of authority from that hadn't been issued through rural development. So that was the 12C. Then there was an election in I believe 2012 for the $1 million that we subsequently sold in 2013. So all three of those bond issues were done through the bond bank. Then the city also did about 2.7 million with rural development for a water project, and that's the first bullet point below that. You can actually refinance the rural development loan too, and so I'm going to talk about how that might factor in because the security pledge behind all of those bonds is the same. It's a pledge on parity of the net revenues of your combined water and sewer system, and so they're equally payable by all four of those bond issues in what we call parity. So the amount outstanding today is 11.9 million. The amount that can be refinanced is 11.16 million. So most of those bonds are subject to optional redemption. Some bonds you can't redeem early, but there's only a small amount. Okay, that's the difference. The next couple of slides just look at interest rates. Again, things have been changing rapidly in the interest rate market. If you look at this slide here, on the far right-hand side, you can see rates bottomed out, but there's been a very quick upswing in rates. That's what's happened over the last 2 weeks, where we saw municipal bond interest rates rise almost 2% from historic lows. Now, they came down roughly 25 basis, a quarter percent today. So, again, we're just seeing markets react and a lot of lack of liquidity. It's not a good time to talk about the market. But this next slide gives you a more historical perspective where we look at, this is the range of interest rates for municipal bonds that mature from 1 year to 30 years. So when you have bonds, when you sell them, you have different chunks of principal. And some of those investors get paid back in 5 years, some in 10 years, some in 30 years. And this is the range of interest rates that has occurred since 1991 for those different maturities, 1 through 30. If I was presenting this 3 weeks ago, this black line, which is where we're at today, would have been at the bottom of this graph, the absolute bottom. It's up off the bottom a little bit, but it's still at the very lower range. Rates are still very low, and then that blue line is the historic average. So we'll see where they go from here. Our expectation is things settle down and we see rates come back down a little bit. So what's the process? So the rural development bond, you can refinance right away. You can just tell rural development, we have some money. We're going to use it to pay off your loan to us tomorrow, like you would refinance your home loan, right? You get a new loan and pay off the old loan. The bond bank bonds are a little bit different in that you cannot pay off the investors until the call date on those bonds. And the call date on those bonds is not until 2022. So there's still 2 years. So the concept's the same, though. You sell a new bond now, lock in the interest rates on those bonds now, put the money from that sale into an escrow account, and that escrow is held by a corporate trust bank like a Wells Fargo or Zions Bank or Bank of New York. And that escrow pays the interest on the outstanding bonds, and then in 2022 it redeems them. So once you do the refinancing, you stop paying on those old bonds right away because the escrow is making the payments, even the interest payments, and you start making payments on the new bonds. So there's a little bit of difference between how you refinance rural development versus how you refinance bond debt. The other difference is the federal tax law changes that occurred in 2017 said that you can only advance refund a bond issue. And when I say advance refund, that means refinance it before the call date. It has to be done with taxable interest rates instead of tax exempt. So there's a dynamic there that you say, well, typically tax exempt interest rates, where what that means is that the investor doesn't pay income tax on the interest earnings. Typically those bonds have lower interest rates than taxable. So there's a little bit of I don't want to say game, but it's a challenge between, should I wait 2 years and be able to do tax exempt? Or are taxable rates low enough now that it makes sense to do it now and capture those savings? So differences there. I'm on to page 6, which probably is when I was talking to Clinton lately, they kept asking about, well, let's do, how much can we save? So, we always want to go straight to this page and say, okay, well, what does this really look like? The refunding candidates are listed at the top, the 4 issues I talked about. And then the savings are sort of on an issue by issue basis listed across the bottom. So on the 2012A, that's the amount of principal that can be called, and this is the rural development loan, okay, is $2,225,000. The interest rate on those bonds is 3%, and you could call them right away. We could get an all-in true interest cost, which is like the blended interest rate, including the fees associated with getting the bonds done through the bond bank. So kind of fully burdened interest cost of 2.37. So you're going from 3% down to 2.37. And that's not a huge difference, but it does produce cash flow savings of about $116,000. The 12Bs, which is the biggest principal amount of $6.8 million, those bonds have an average coupon or interest rate of 4.05%. So just call it 4%. Those can be replaced with an all-in true interest cost of 2.29. So there's a bigger delta or difference between what you're paying and what you could refinance at, producing cash flow savings of almost $900,000, $895. You'll notice that I also put in something called net present value. So those savings, that's $895,000 of savings that's realized over the next 20 years, between now and 2040.
Say again the amount.
Pardon?
Say again the amount, please.
895,000 of total savings that are spread out between now and 2040. Right? So we say, okay, well, a dollar saved today is more valuable, typically, than a dollar saved in 2040. And that's the concept of present value. So we say, well, what's the present value of those future savings? And we do that just to provide a metric that, as professionals in the municipal bond industry, we can say, well, is this a good refunding or not? Saving money is good, but how good is it? So this concept of present value, if we present value those future savings back to today, it's $730,000. As a percent of what you're refinancing, $730,000 as a percent of 6.8 million is 10.6. What does that mean to you? Anything above 3% is considered a good refinancing to consider. I like to use 5% as my minimum threshold. So when I see 10%, I think that's certainly worth me coming to tell you about it and to consider, for you to consider doing. So on the 2012C, 1.1 million of principal replaced at a 2.84%. Interest cost on the 12C is 4%, so there's a pretty big difference there. Call it 160,000 of cash flow savings. And then the 13A, that's the $1 million last piece we did. The interest rate on that was 3.5%. And it goes out to 2042, so it's outstanding a little bit longer. And so therefore, to refinance it, the interest cost is a bit higher because it's a longer maturity. And so you don't really have a big difference, 2.86% all-in true interest cost. So there's not a lot of savings there, 14,000. But if you were moving forward to do a refinancing and talking to the staff, you may want to roll that in just so that you can make 4 bond issues go away, replace it with 1, and just from a record keeping and processing standpoint, it might be easy to track. But you could certainly leave the 13As out, if you didn't feel like it was worth pursuing at that level of savings.
Mayor?
Yes.
Quick question for you
You bet.
before we switch pages. So the all-in true interest costs, how are those calculated and what date are those calculated at?
We ran that February 28th.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of when we were doing a lot of this analysis, and so that's before the run-up in rates. Okay. Please recognize that these were savings that we could not accomplish today. That being said, we think rates are going to come back down over the course of the next 4 to 6 months. They might not, but we think they will. So I think what you're asking is, well, what would they look like today?
Well, that and what components all go into determining which bond receives a certain interest rate?
Sure. So what we did is we looked at, okay, here's where we know interest rates were at on February 28th for a bond bank issue. The bond banks hold bonds, what kind of rates could they get? And then what are their costs? So the bond bank has, attorney costs, advisor costs, issuance costs, the underwriting costs. And so we estimate about 1.5% all in for the cost, 1.5% of the principal amount. So that's built into that number.
Okay.
Yeah. And to the extent we end up with a bond bank transaction that's bigger with lots of participants, that percentage will go down. Okay. Right. And so there's some benefit. We think we've been conservative, at least on those costs of issuance. We've been accurate about where we think the market is. The problem is the market's gone away from us. So you add it all up, it's roughly 1.2 million of cash flow savings and almost a 990,000 of present value. If you go to the next page, which just provides a comparison of your existing bond payments. The first column is the calendar year. The second column are the existing bond payments of roughly 785,000 a year. And then in the last year, it goes up to $1 million. It's not because you have a big balloon payment. It's just that you have a debt service reserve fund that's dedicated and restricted, and the monies in that debt service reserve fund would be applied against that last payment. So it'd actually be less than the 780,000 roughly. Point being, right now you're paying about 785,000 a year in bond payments. Assuming those interest rates as of February 28th, you could lower those down to about 730,000 and achieve roughly 60,000 of annual savings. It fluctuates a little bit year to year, but again, you add them all up, and it's almost 1.2 million of cash flow savings over the next 22 years. The one other thing to comment on here is that you do have this debt service reserve fund dedicated to support these bonds. If there's a possibility, one, it's sized based on what your annual payments are. So it could be reduced and you can free up that money. You can either apply, so that's one of the things that the city would need to think about is if you pursue the refinancing, would you apply those reserve monies to pay down the debt and refinance less, or just have them freed up and available for operations in the water and sewer funds. And there may be a possibility that, and I'll get to it later, that given how well you've managed your finances, you may not be required to have a reserve fund going forward, in which case you'd have roughly $800,000 of existing reserves that you could either apply to pay down debt or have freed up for the system. Okay, page 8. Things to consider. First 3 bullet points on this page have to do with legal and other considerations. So I talked about how federal tax law says that if you refinance now, most of it would need to be sold on a taxable basis. Or you can wait 2 years and hope rates are still low and do a tax-exempt refunding. So there's kind of a balance there between we can do it now and save money, we can wait, maybe save more money if rates don't change. But that's part of the dynamic that needs to be thought about. In Idaho, when we refinance, sort of 2 things that you need to know is, one, you cannot increase the amount of debt outstanding, right? So none of this would increase the amount of debt you have outstanding, nor can you extend the repayment term. It's not like when you refinance a mortgage and you go, you had a 30-year mortgage, you're 10 years in, you refinance, and you're back into a 30. This has to have the same final maturity as your existing bonds. So you're not extending and you're not increasing the debt.
Yes. So on this, you're talking about the savings. Is that based on the current refund or the tax?
Taxable. Yeah, this is all based on
Taxable.
being able to. So the rural development would be tax exempt because it can be refinanced right now, and the others would be taxable. Yeah, so we factor that in. The second kind of things to think about is how do you want to restructure your savings? Do you want to, if you're refinancing, do you want to have savings every year? Like basically we produce level savings. You save about 50, 60,000 a year, or you can keep the payments the same and just push all the savings into the last year. That will produce more overall savings. You just won't see any money saved until that last year, but the gross number would be bigger if you did it that way. Or you can say, well, we know we have a project in 5 years, so keep my payments the same for the next 5 years and then drop it down because we got another project coming in. You have lots of flexibility with that. The one thing you can't, the one thing you can't do is increase your payments above a level that you wouldn't be able to meet your coverage or your existing revenue can reach your bond payments. Talk about the reserve. Again, something to consider is what to do with those excess reserve funds, whether they're a small amount or a big amount, depending on, I think the bond bank, if you do pursue the financing, is a strong possibility that they could waive the requirement to maintain a reserve. So I got 3 more slides, and then the next piece is to talk just about process. The bond bank is getting ready to do a financing. The schedule is listed here on page 9. This all starts with the different cities who want to participate to put in an application for bond bank financing, and the deadline that we've identified is May 31st. So the application process is 2-page application, $500 non-refundable fee. If you start down the road and thing doesn't happen, you're out $500. But I believe we're going to be having a variety of cities throughout the state, as well as a few counties, get on board with this financing program. So I think we will have a financing that will occur, and we're shooting for the end of August is when we'd actually lock the interest rates. So there's sort of a lot of time for the markets to stabilize and see what the world looks like before we get there. And then the bond closing would be September 16th, and that would be the day all the monies were transferred. The old bonds would be, the escrows for the old bonds would be funded, and you'd stop paying on those bonds and start paying on new bonds. I've listed some of the bond bank contacts, just so you know kind of the team behind this. Again, I work for Piper Sandler. Our role with the bond bank is we're their underwriter. If this transaction happens, we'll be the ones that go out and actually sell the bonds to investors. And so we're sort of hired by not only the bond bank, but in some degrees the cities and counties that participate and get their financing through the bond bank. But the bond bank has an executive director who's Edeline Oman. She's the investment manager at the state treasurer's office. There's a board of directors, one of which is he used to be the city managers or Association of Idaho Cities executive, Seth Gregg. Remember Seth? He's with the counties now. Seth's on the board of the bond bank. Darren Hodge is the municipal advisor, so they're represented by a fiduciary. Part of their job is to make sure we do a good job when we sell the bonds. And then Rick Skinner, who's the bond attorney to the bond bank, advising them on all the legal things. If you pursued this, you would also employ a local legal counsel that specializes in municipal bonds. Back in 2012, that person was Stephanie Bonney, who did all the work representing the city on that municipal finance side. I'm going to skip over page 10 because the bond bank has these ongoing requirements, which you're already subject to. But we like to make sure that the borrowers who are thinking about using the bond bank know that the bond bank expects them to make your payments, obviously. The bond bank expects you to send in your audits when they're within, I think, 6 months at the end of the fiscal year. They expect you to maintain a certain level of coverage, i.e. that your net system revenues provide some breathing room over the debt payments each year. And then finally, the last bullet is that they want you to maintain a debt service reserve fund, but if you get coverage levels above 150, they may waive that. And the last page I have here is to show you your coverage levels, which are very good. This last page is a spread of your effectively your income statement from 2014 through 2018, where we look at operating revenues, less operating expenses, We add back depreciation. That's how coverage is defined to be calculated within the documents. We add your investment income in the water and sewer funds. And you basically have, in 2018, almost 1.8 million of what we call net system revenue available for debt service, and your annual payments are about 780,000. So that 1.8 million covers the 780,000 by 2.3 times, right? You divide it in, it's 2.3. That's very good coverage. The minimum coverage is 1.25. That's what you're required to have. And when you first did these, we were right at 1.25, 150. And it was very, what we call skinny. And it's gotten a lot better. So congratulations to city leaders and city staff for making that happen, because you're now in, I think, a very good financial position in those funds. So there's no imminent need to do this because you're in good financial shape. And the opportunity to refinance is there. We think the bond bank is the best opportunity to do that because the value of the bond bank is when they sell bonds, two things. One, they get the interest rates that are lower than you could get on your own because they're a higher rated credit. They have a AA1 Moody's credit rating because their bond issues, when they sell them to fund your loan, are backed by the sales tax account of the state. So if you don't make your loan payment, which you will, we fully expect you to, but the investor has the comfort that the state's standing behind that loan and will backstop it in case something goes wrong at the city level. So that's one benefit is you get the bond bank can get lower interest rates. The other is the economies of scale of pooling together these different loans from other communities and doing it all at once and spreading the fixed costs out among a bigger group of borrowers. So I'm gonna stop there. That's the opportunity. Again, I feel like the opportunity is between now and 2022, right? If you want to get on board with the bond bank, the schedule is kind of outlined there. But if you wanted to wait for that opportunity to do tax exempt in 2022, that opportunity is not going away. We just don't know what's going to happen with interest rates.
My question is this cyclic? In other words, will there be another opportunity in 2021 by May 31st or thereabouts? How does that work?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to see the bond bank was very active between the period of 2010 and 2014. So there's going to be these other bond issues, and as long as interest rates remain relatively low, I would expect that we'll see more opportunities. And at least bond bank's goal is to do up to 4 issues a year. So the challenge with trying to do these refinancings is who's on board at this time and when, and getting those all lined up. So the bond bank hasn't done anything in the last couple of years. And so I think we'll be on a schedule where we at least do 1 a year on this type of schedule, and there may be 2 a year going forward.
Would your recommendation be that we wait at least a month or 2 to see what's going to happen?
I would, Mr. Mayor, good question. I have issuers that I work with who are getting ready to sell bonds. And given the dislocation in the markets, we're saying, just let's take a time out and not go day to day and rush back in. Let's just let things settle out and come back and look at this in a month.
Right.
So I think that's wise, counsel.
So maybe you'll be back here in a month.
Yeah. And I think the nice thing to do would be to once we get a market that's more stable and functioning with a lot more liquidity, to update these numbers and say, okay, February 28th was this. Now this is what we're looking at now. To come up with those numbers today would be just guessing.
Right. Council, have any additional questions?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Roughly what would you said we have to get an attorney to assist us on our side too. Is that quite a large cost to the city?
Mr. Mayor, council member, no. I would say, one, it's already factored into these numbers, and it's going to be, and it can be paid for out of the proceeds. $20,000 to $40,000. I mean, which is a big number if you have to come up, out of pocket, but it's all kind of wrapped into that overall all-in cost that you identified. And when we update these numbers, we'll be updating in that fashion where sort of this is all-in cost that is accounted for that.
Do you recommend the bonding attorney?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll probably see you in a bit.
That'd be nice.
And please, hope you make it home safely,
All right.
not get hailed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good luck with the next month.
Thanks. Yes.
So one thing I do want to ask is for the IBVA application, can we get approval to have the funding allocated for the 500 so that when we're ready, we can do the application and kind of be prepared for this?
Well, they're not gonna do the application now, and then we're just.
Well, that's it. I mean,
They would process the application now, but not
Because
do any final.
because even with the application process, we can choose at that point, at any given point, to say we don't want to move forward based on the market, what the interest rates are looking like, or what our economy.
So as I understand, you're simply asking for the non-refundable fee of
Yes, sir.
$500
And an application.
for the application process to begin.
Yes, sir.
Recognizing that we can always say, no, not at this time.
Correct.
All right?
Just being proactive, getting ahead of it, have the application in, so that if everything looks good to us, we're already in that pre-approval. Is that
All right.
correct, Eric?
Yep. Well, the chair will entertain that motion at this time.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve Public Works to move forward with the $500 non-refundable payment for the possible refinance of the sewer bonds, sewer water bonds,
Sewer and water.
sewer water bonds.
I'll second it. All right. To restate, the motion has been made to appropriate the non-refundable $500 fee for the IBBA application process as simply preparing to move ahead in case we do. A main motion having been made by President Debaker, second by Council Member Brzezinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? The ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Let's go on to, Jake, are you there? Hello?
Yes, Mayor, still here.
All right. I don't know if you have a copy of the agenda, but the next item on the action item is approval of Resolution R 2020-04. That's the resolution finding that an emergency exists pursuant to Title 67, Section 2808 of the Idaho Code, ratifying the mayor's official declaration of a local disaster emergency, extending the declaration beyond 7 days in accordance with Title 46, Section 1011 of the Idaho Code, and establishing an effective date. Did you wish to be heard on that?
I can, Mayor. As I have everything in front of me, I'm just at the office. So council, this would be your action to extend the mayor's emergency declaration to longer than the 7 days. Otherwise it would expire tomorrow. This is a standard resolution that I think the mayor said is going around to. It's gone around to the other counties and cities in the state. This resolution would then cease when the council, when the emergency was over, and the council would then declare the emergency ended.
All right. council have any questions of legal counsel?
Mayor,
Yes.
I just have one question. It appears, I think when you signed it 18th of May, 2020.
That's bad penmanship. It's the 18th of March.
Okay,
I pointed out to everyone it looked like the 18th of May, but I was trying to make an R.
All right.
Turned out to look like a Y. But we also have the date. It's written there, so. And the effective date, Mr. Sweeten, would be immediately?
Yeah, if the council approves it, it would be immediate.
So Chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes? Councilman Henderson?
are you talking? I make a motion that we approve resolution R 2020-0 and have it effective immediately.
All right. That's fine. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been seconded by Councilman Rosinkin. The main motion having been made by Councilman Henderson. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
do we have a time frame that we need to say we want this to be
No.
4 years long, or is it just?
No. What you do is when the emergency is over, you simply revoke it.
Okay,
That way we're neither too long nor too short.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Does that satisfy you, Mr. Sweeten?
Yes, Mayor.
All right. And would it be your preference to have just a voice vote or a roll call?
Roll call is a good idea on this one, Mayor.
I believe so too. All right, is there any further discussion? All right. President Nebeker.
Yay.
Councilman Henderson.
Yay.
Councilman Rosinkin.
Yay.
All right. Councilman Butler.
Yay.
Councilman Welch.
Yay.
And Councilman Sorensen.
Yay.
The yeas have it. It's unanimous. Going on to approval of ordinance O 2020-04. This is an ordinance enacting a new chapter to Title I of the Emmett City Code entitled Emergency Powers, setting forth the authority, purpose, and intent, definitions of public health emergency orders, process for enacting public health emergency orders, suspension of services, penalty, adopting the savings clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. Sweet, do you wish to be heard?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So again, council, this is pretty much the standard ordinance that is circulating throughout the state for municipalities. This particular one was adopted by the city of Boise. There is a lot in there. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through it. A lot of it, as you'll see, is going to be those orders. When it becomes necessary, would come back before you for consideration. This is just to prepare us just in case. I have it up in front of me. If there are particular sections you want to read through, we can do this. I will tell you, this whole response has been pretty fluid. My attorney listserv has been blowing up because, things are changing day to day. This is not an all-inclusive ordinance, but I think it gets us started. And if we need to pivot down the road, I think we'll have the ability to do it. But I think this was a good start, just in case the council needs to make further decisions to protect the city.
Council, have any questions?
Yes, I do. Here.
Yes.
Now, say we run into an emergency, can we call another city council meeting next week to see what city council wants to do and things, or we just leave it up to you?
Well, insofar as what?
As far as, we don't know what's gonna happen. So the city needs to do something different from what we're doing and.
Oh, sure, we'd have a
call an
special
emergency.
session.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes.
And Jake, I know you've probably reviewed these quite heavily, and I believe I actually spoke to a councilman from Caldwell. They've done the same thing, I believe, tonight also. And this is no discredit towards anybody. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but my question would be is, why do they have the appeals being approved by the fire chief and are his designee only instead of an elected official?
Well, I think what the intent there is to, since you're the decision makers and you're making this policy, the fire chief, and in our case, our fire chief is our head emergency response. I'm sorry, chief, I don't know your exact title off the top of my head, but I think that adds kind of I would say almost a neutral third party, and kind of separates you as the decision makers.
I guess my concern would be is on every other appeal that we have in a city ordinance, it always appeals back to the city council. And I know the language in here talks about if it does come back to the council, unless there's not going to be a council meeting during that isolation phase or whatever it may be. I'm not trying to take anything from fire chief. I'm just wondering if maybe the mayor would be a better position to have that, as he would be the person to listen to an appeal, as he being an elected official instead of a employee of the city. That's just my thoughts, and I didn't know if there's any reasoning why they're having the fire chief there. Do we know why we would not have a council meeting, a special meeting, or could we do something telephonic? Do you know why we would not ever have a council meeting?
Why we wouldn't have one, I guess, if you want to call a special meeting, we can always call one. We can even call an emergency meeting if we have to.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. So I'm not sure why this language would be in there, because it seemed like you'd always have some recourse back to come back to your council to listen to an appeal process if that was ever to come forward.
Councilor, let me ask you this. Is this the standard format template that has the AIC seal of approval and is making the rounds in Idaho?
Well, I can't speak for AIC. I know this is what the city of Boise passed, and as I talked with other city attorneys, they were using this same template. Like I said, there is some fluidity with this. Boise's the entity here in the state with all the legal horsepower, and obviously between them and Meridian, they're dealing with the largest citizen base. So we may find that something is not working, so we can pivot and change that to something that is going to work. There are some unknowns here.
Okay, Mayor?
Yes.
So if this is a standard kind of protocol, why don't we have a sunset provision like Boise City has? Why do we leave that section out of our ordinance?
Actually, Boise City is going to take theirs out if it's in there. And I did take a poll among other cities. I only got a few responses back that said they did have a sunset, and a lot of them had to do from 30 days to 180 days. Jerry Mason's response, and Jerry Mason's the counsel for AIC, his suggestion was not to have a sunset provision. I don't have a hard legal opinion one way or another. I can see the benefit. I think there's pros and cons, I can see the benefit to having a sunset provision in there. But, given the fluidity of the emergency that we're dealing with, I don't know what a good date would be. That's something you guys would have to figure out.
Well, as I understand it,
Most of the cities that I heard back from did not have sunset provisions.
as I understand it, Mr. Mason's position was at such time when this is completed and the virus has run its course and things are kind of sort of back to normal and not the new normal, you simply repeal the ordinance.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mayor?
Yes.
So if I understand correctly, so once this is all completed, we would actually remove the ordinance from our,
It would be repealed.
would it not be good to keep it in case we had another one?
Well, you could, and then at that time, the answer is, it's nice to have something like that. And rather than put a sunset on it right now where it would automatically be repealed, if you wanted to keep something like that on the books, you could, or you could put in a proviso that, fenced it in any way that you thought appropriate.
Mayor?
Yes.
Wait
Wait a minute, we got a question. We got a question.
Well, it's just the question about repealing ordinances and the likelihood of us going back and repealing any type of ordinance when it takes us so long to modify or change any ordinances that we have in play. Because I know I did email Jake on that with the sunset provision. And Jake, do you know when the city of Boise took this out? Because I have a copy of it and they approved it March 17th with that sunset clause in there.
Yeah, Boise City Attorney today emailed everybody and said they're most likely going to take that out next week with a few other things.
Okay, do you know, they also have in the city of Boise's ordinance, they also have a term of order in there. Do you know why ours didn't put that in there if we were just copying and pasting from city of Boise?
This is exactly what City of Boise gave me.
Okay.
I went in and reviewed it. I didn't change anything material.
Okay, because I pulled it off the Sterling codifiers this afternoon, and a term of orders, every public health emergency order shall include an effective date and termination date that shall be no more than 30 days from the effective date, which may be extended upon city council. So that was just one thing that I pulled off Sterling codifiers, and it was something that wasn't in ours.
Yeah, like I said, it's fluid, and Boise has more meetings than we do. They're pivoting. They're having to pivot more than we are. So this is just kind of a start. I keep working on it. If you want to give me some more notes and keep editing this.
Mayor?
Yes?
The importance of this ordinance, is this important to have this on immediately, or do we have 2 weeks to reevaluate? Because I know Caldwell just came online with one. It sounds like other cities are doing the same thing. If Boise is already revising theirs, apparently they've had some concerns that have come up with their initial draft on that. So I'm just wondering if that might be something, even if we have a special meeting, if we give it a week to see how Boise and other cities are actually, so we're not revising ours as like we're going to do too. If we get something that be a little more concrete through the trials that they're coming in with. I know we're not Boise, we're a lot different than they are, but maybe some of the smaller communities also having the same thing would be helpful for us too.
Well, yeah, and I see what you're saying, and that's why I've been trying to emphasize the fluidity of the situation. Boise's attorney, exact words where they're learning a lot, and I see what you're saying as far as, well, maybe we table this until next week or the next meeting. What I am thinking is going to happen is even by then, there will be even more changes. I think the intent was to get this ordinance in place immediately. There is a section under Idaho Code under, cases of emergency. This can be put into place and published right away, and it takes effect. I have a feeling that Boise will be amending their ordinance, and it's probable that we will be amending ours down the road as well, as things change and we need to pivot.
Mayor?
Yes.
So the process of amending it, is that simply just at one meeting? Can you amend it in one meeting, or do you have to come back with a new draft? And how is the process for amending an ordinance once put in place?
Given the emergency situation, we could do it at that meeting.
Jake?
Yeah.
Okay, with if we do have some provisions that we'd like to change in this, could we put it in a motion to be able to change it now? And then how would that work if it's in an emergency type situation regarding any?
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
yeah, we could do that. You're probably going to need somebody there that can do the penciling. And then I am at my desk, so that once I get the exact changes, I can put them into the master document and get them over to the clerk.
Well, Jake, what's your preference? If the council wants amendments now, it seems to me that maybe we just have a meeting 1 week from now or at such other time to deal with that and approve it all at once rather than piecemeal. Particularly if Boise has learned a lot and they're going to be changing theirs, we can have the benefit. Do you see the requirement right now for us to have this in order for us to move forward?
Well, I think the issue is, do you anticipate that you're going to need, or that the council is going to need to issue any of these orders that are in the ordinance? Because that's the thrust of the ordinance itself, is the ability for the city to issue these orders. So if you anticipate within the next week or so that you're going to need to do some of these orders, I think it needs to be done now.
Well,
if you don't anticipate that,
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a prophet. But the council, but the as I see things happening right now, it's conceivable, particularly if we have a positive virus in Jim County. They just had theirs today. So we're essentially kind of surrounded.
Mayor?
I think that's the issue. Do we, because you can't issue these orders unless we've got an ordinance in place that says you've got the authority to do it.
Mayor?
Yes.
So Jake, that only gives the mayor the authority. Still, the city council still has authority to enforce those provisions, correct? The council as a whole can do that. Is that correct?
Will you repeat that, please?
Yeah, this ordinance is just providing the mayor singly to do these orders for the isolation orders or the quarantine orders. But the city council can do that at any meeting that we have as a body, right? This only gives the mayor the single authority to do that at his discretion. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think it's discretionary. I think the ordinance says, and on all these different orders, that the mayor, may summarily or following consultation with the city council enact these orders. So I think there's a communication that needs to occur before there's some unilateral decision-making going on.
Well, I can speak for the mayor, and he's not going to make any unilateral decision. However, if he had a direction from the governor, we're going into a statewide shutdown, everyone will hunker down in place, and all non-essential businesses will cease operation at this time as defined, which I guess we're going to find out Thursday afternoon what non-essential businesses are. To me, it's pretty easy based upon that executive authority, because who would Emmett be to second guess the governor if it's a state order? I mean, we're not going to do anything less and say it's okay. You don't have to pay attention to the governor's order.
Mayor,
Yes.
at that point, you wouldn't have to do anything. We would just have to enforce it.
Well, at the local level. Yeah. But we need a mechanism apart from that, in my opinion, that empowers the city police to enforce such an order that would be a lawful order. And if based upon the governor's declaration and they're directed by the mayor to enforce the order, that gives them the cover. I mean, we could sit here all night and pencil whip this thing, or we can take that first step, and then as time goes along and we learn, like Boise did, we can make the modifications that are necessary. I'm not going to do anything unilateral. So,
Mayor? Yeah. I move that we approve ordinance 2020-04, an ordinance enacting a new chapter 12 to Title 1 Emmett City Code entitled Emergency Powers, setting forth the authority, purpose, and intent, definitions, public health emergency orders, process for enacting public health emergency orders, suspension of services penalty, adopting a saving clause, and providing an effective date.
now, does that include suspension of the rule pursuant to Idaho Code 5902 that otherwise requires the reading of the ordinance on 3 different days, 1 such reading in full and 2 by title only, so that it be satisfied by reading tonight only by title?
Yes.
That's part of the motion?
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
I second it.
All right, it's been seconded. It's been seconded by 2 individuals. And it's and I'll call it a tie. I'll call it a tie because there's a delay. You're at a disadvantage, Councilman Henderson. So both you and Councilman Welch have seconded the,
That would be me.
Yeah,
motion.
it was Sorensen.
Oh, so was it?
I can't.
Sorry.
Councilman Sorensen has seconded it, and Councilman Henderson. All right, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, it's a yay or nay vote at this time. President Nebeker.
Nay.
Okay. Councilman Rosinkin.
Nay.
Okay. Councilman Butler.
Yay.
Councilman Henderson. Okay. Councilman Welch.
Nay.
Okay. And Councilman Sorensen.
Yay.
Okay. It's tied 3-3. The mayor will now break the tie. Yay.
Ordinance number 02020-04. An ordinance enacting a new chapter 12 to Title 1 Emmett City Code entitled Emergency Powers, setting forth the authority, purpose, and intent, definitions, public health emergency orders, process for enacting public health emergency orders, suspension of services, penalty, adopting a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
All right. Thank you. The chair will now entertain a motion for publication of the ordinance.
Mayor,
And to help you, the chair will entertain specifically that motion where it can be by title only, right?
Correct. Well, the entire ordinance is gonna need to be posted,
Right.
but when we send it to the paper, it'll be a summary.
All right. And,
We have to have a motion to, do we have to have a motion to accept the reading?
yes, I'm now going to have an entertain a motion that accepts the first and only reading of ordinance O 2020-04, directing the mayor to sign and directed to be published by summary. What'd you say, Jake?
Mayor, that'd be my motion.
All right, but before I restate that motion, Jake, will you please repeat what you indicated?
Well, so in an emergency like this, it needs to be posted, the entirety of the ordinance need to be posted in 5 different public locations.
Right.
Yes.
But it's
When we send it
to
the
be
paper,
posted,
It's
but
gonna go in by summary.
yeah, by summary to the paper, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so the motion then, I will entertain the motion to accept the first and only reading of ordinance O 2020-04, directing the mayor to sign, directing that it be published by summary, but that it be posted in 5 public places as provided by statute. Was that your motion, Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
All right,
second.
and it's been seconded by Councilman Butler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. President Everker?
Nay.
Okay. Councilman Rosinski?
Nay.
Councilman Butler?
Yay.
Councilman Henderson?
Yay.
Councilman Welch?
Nay.
And Councilman Sorensen?
Yay.
All right, once again, a tie. The mayor will break the tie. Yay.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I can just ask the council, if you have comments, please send them to me. Like I said, this is a fluid situation. I'm anticipating that we would make some changes. So if you've got some comments, please email them to me, and we'll continue to work on this.
Jake, I'll email those that I have the concerns as to why I did not accept it as it written. So I'll get those emailed over there.
Okay.
All right. The next one is approval of resolution R 2020-02, a resolution of the city of Emmett setting forth a latecomers policy that provides real property owners and developers a mechanism to voluntarily seek reimbursement for eligible sewer facilities and exceed the sponsoring developer sewer facilities requirements as provided. This time, Director of Public Works Clint Siemens will be presenting something to the council.
Yes, Mayor, Council. So what this is that latecomers that we discussed last meeting, the resolution to it, to allow us to have this in place so that if we have development that's coming from an owner or a developer, we have this in place to be able to negotiate however that may look. So tonight I'm asking for approval of resolution number R 2020-02, a resolution of the city of Emmett setting forth a latecomers policy that provides real property owners and developers a mechanism to voluntarily seek reimbursement for eligible sewer facilities and exceed the sponsoring developer's sewer facilities required as provided.
All right, any questions from the council?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve resolution R 2020-02.
I'll second.
All right, a motion has been made to approve resolution R 2020-02 as and it was, main motion having been made by President Nebaker and seconded by Councilman Welch. And of course, as stated, that was a resolution of the City of Emmett setting forth a latecomers policy that provides real property owners and developers a mechanism to voluntarily seek reimbursement for eligible sewer facilities and exceed the sponsoring developer sewer facilities requirements as provided. And Councilman Sweeten, do you believe that a simple voice vote is adequate here?
Yes.
I do too. All right, is any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of resolution R 2020-02, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it came in late, but it came in. Any opposed? Please say nay if you're opposed. Are there any abstentions? The yeas have it. The motion approving resolution 2020-02 carries. The next matter is approval of resolution R 2020-03, a resolution of the City of Emmett setting forth a latecomers policy that provides real property owners and developers a mechanism to voluntarily seek reimbursement for eligible water facilities that exceed the sponsoring developers' water facilities requirements as provided. Mr. Sims.
This is the same as the sewer, just the water. So this is approval of resolution R 2020-03, a resolution of the City of Emmett setting forth a latecomers policy that provides real property owners and developers a mechanism to voluntarily seek reimbursement for eligible water facilities that exceed the sponsoring developers' water facilities requirements as provided.
Okay, any questions? Chair will entertain a motion for approval.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
make a motion, we approve resolution number R 2020-03.
Second.
All right. The main motion has been made by President Nebaker, the second by Councilman Rosenkin to approve resolution R 2020-03, a resolution of the City of Emmett setting forth a latecomers policy that provides real property owners and developers a mechanism to voluntarily seek reimbursement for eligible water facilities, exceed the sponsoring developers' water facilities requirements as provided. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yay.
Yay.
Yay. Opposed, nay.
Yay.
Was that a yay?
Yay.
Any nays? All those in opposition, please signify by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Yeas have it. The motion carries for approval of resolution R 2020-03. The next has to do with ordinance O 2020-05. And Director of Building and Planning, Brian Sullivan.
Community Mayor and Council, tonight I have ordinance O 2020-05. This was the annexation ordinance for 2030 South Washington, which you approved at the last meeting. So I'm looking for approval of this ordinance so we can move forward and complete that project. And yes, and waive the rules in one reading tonight by title only.
Chair will entertain that motion.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
make a motion, we approve ordinance O 2020-05 and dispense with the rules requiring the ordinance be read on 3 separate days and once in full, and that the ordinance be read once by title only.
I'll say it.
All right. Also providing for an effective date and mayor sign.
Yes.
Required by statute anyway. It's always nice to get the motion. All right. The motion has been made by President Nebaker to approve ordinance O 2020-05. This is an ordinance annexing to the City of Emmett, Idaho, certain real property that's located at 2030 South Washington in the unincorporated Jim County, and contiguous to the corporate limits of the city of Emmett, Idaho, establishing the zoning classifications of said real property, directing that copies of this ordinance be filed as provided by law, providing for an effective date, the mayor to sign, to be read once by title only. I think that was it.
Was it?
That was it. So that motion and second having been made, is there any further discussion? Hearing none. President Nebeker?
Yay.
Councilman Rosinkin?
Yay.
Councilman Butler?
Yay.
Councilman Henderson?
Yay.
Councilman Welch?
Yay.
And Councilman Sorensen?
Yay.
The yeas have it. And
This be read.
at this time, it will be read. You're going to read it?
I will read it,
By
yes.
title only?
By title only. Ordinance O 2020-05, an ordinance annexing to the city of Emmett, Idaho, certain real property located at 2030 South Washington in the unincorporated area of Gem County, Idaho, and contiguous to the corporate limits of the city of Emmett, Idaho, establishing the zoning classification of said real property, directing that copies of this ordinance be filed as provided by law, and providing an effective date.
All right. At this time, the chair will accept a motion to accept the first and only reading of ordinance O 2020-05, directing the mayor to sign and directing that it be published by summary.
Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept the first and only reading of ordinance O 2020-05, direct the mayor to sign and direct to be published by summary.
Second.
The main motion has been made by President Nebeker to accept the approval of ordinance O 2020-05, directing or approving the first reading and directing the mayor to sign and to be published by summary only. And the second was made by Councilman Butler. Any further discussion? All those in favor, President
Yay.
Nebeker?
Yay.
Councilman Rosinkin?
Yay.
Councilman Henderson?
Yay.
Councilman Butler?
Yay.
Councilman Welch?
Yay.
And Councilman Sorensen?
Yay.
Yeas have it. Next matter is approval of ordinance O 2020-06, which is an ordinance amending the zoning classification for certain real property in the city of Emmett, Idaho, located at 920 South Wardwell, from R2 duplex to R3 multifamily, and providing an effective date.
One correction there, you said 920 South Wardwell, it was 913 South Wardwell.
I have no idea why I said 920. It's
I
913.
figured
It says that right
No
there.
clue either, so I can just throw that out there. Looking for approval of this ordinance and to follow the same rules and waive the rules and read it by one time, by title only.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve ordinance O 2020-06 and dispense with the rule requiring the words to be read on 3 separate dates and once in full. The words be read once by title.
I'll second.
All right. A motion was made for the approval of ordinance O 2020-06, which is an ordinance amending the zoning classification for certain property in the city of Emmett, Idaho, located at 913 South Wardwell, changing classification from R2 duplex to R3 multifamily and providing for an effective date, and that it be suspension of the rules and be read once by title. Any further discussion? President Nebeker?
Yay.
Councilman Rosinkin? Yay. Councilman Butler?
Yay.
Councilman Welch?
Yay.
Councilman Sorensen?
Yay.
Councilman Henderson?
Yay.
Yeas have it.
I'll read the ordinance. Ordinance O 2020-06, an ordinance amending the zoning classification for certain real property in the city of Emmett, Idaho, located at 913 South Boardwall from R2 duplex to R3 multifamily and providing an effective date.
All right. The chair will now accept a motion accepting the first reading and having the mayor authorizing the mayor to sign and publication by summary only.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
make a motion, we accept it, first and only reading ordinance O 2020-06, direct the mayor to sign and direct to be published by summary.
All right, second. Main motion has been made by President Nebaker to accept the first and only reading of O 2020-06 and to direct the mayor to sign and be published by summary only. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none. President Nebaker.
Yay.
Councilman Rosinkin.
Okay,
Councilman Henderson.
Yay.
Councilman Butler. Councilman Welch.
Yay.
And Councilman Sorensen.
Yay.
Yeas have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next is approval of bid from Granite Extension Excavation, Inc. for the Phillips Street project.
Mayor, council, I have a request that we all talk into our mics a little closer. You can't hear us.
Specifically at the podium, for example.
Specifically at the podium. Apparently I'm loud enough. I know, I totally took that, I'm sorry. Mayor, council, tonight I'm asking for a motion to approve the Granite Excavation Incorporated bid for Phillips Street project in the amount of $26,803.75 with the mayor to sign.
All right. Any questions? Chair will entertain the motion at this time.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Henderson.
I make a motion to approve Granite Excavation Incorporated, the bid for Phillips Street project in the amount of $26,803.75 and the mayor to sign.
All right, thank you. Councilman Henderson has made the main motion to accept the approval of the bid from Granite Excavation, Inc. for Phillips Street project in the amount of $26,803.75. Mayor to sign. And the main motion was seconded by Councilman Rosinkin. Any further discussions? Counselor, I take the position this is simply a bid. Do you also?
Did it say what?
This is simply a bid, so it's approving the bid. We don't need a roll call vote. Would you agree?
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, the last aye came in. Are there any nays? Are there any abstentions? The ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Next is approval of the Galena Consulting Emmett impact fee proposal.
Yes, Mayor, council, this is a motion to approve the Galena Consulting impact fee proposal in the amount of $10,000 with the mayor to sign. $8,000 of this will be paid out of streets, and $2,000 of this will be paid out of general fund. There's two parts to this contract.
You want that to be a part of the motion? Or
Yes.
do you care?
Well, I don't care, but it should be part of the motion so that we know where the funds are coming
All right?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Clay, could you explain a little what this really entails?
from. Absolutely. So part of an impact fee or really a profile of our city is the CIP, which is basically, here's your assets. This is what it takes to run. This is, Galena Consulting is who has done most of the impact for our surrounding cities and counties. They're also kind of working with Jim County. what this will do is come in and take a snapshot of really our general funds and all of the departments that set in there and their assets, and it will also do that on my roadways and give us that asset so that if we we need it anyways, but it's been something we need to have in our direction of planning and moving forward. But ultimately, what this will do is if we go down a road to do impact fees, this will be a critical component because it'll show when we ask for an impact fee, it will show what that impact fee should be adjacent to what the CIP and really the assets look like. So that's kind of in a nutshell, but ultimately my sewer, my water has this, it's critical. Our general fund and our road should have it too.
And what were the dollar breakdowns on that again?
8,000 for the street impact and 2,000 for the general fund capital improvement plan.
So 8,000 street, 2,000 general fund.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor,
Yes?
I make a motion to approve the Galena Consulting City Impact Fee proposal in the amount of $10,000. The mayor to sign to be $8,000 from street and $2,000 from general fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Henderson. Main motion having been made by President Nebaker to approve the Galena Consulting Emmett impact fee proposal of $10,000, 8,000 of that being from the street fund and 2,000 being from the general fund. Any further discussion? Hearing none. And the mayor to sign. I should have stated that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This is a contract.
Oh, it is contracted.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have that before me. I asked the council member if it was, and he said no. So I said it was just a fee proposal. In any event, that being a contract, we will now go by a roll call vote. President, I didn't see that. Well, the council's saying they don't see a contract. And I don't have my computer up here. I'll tell you what, we'll just do a roll call vote anyway, it doesn't matter. President Nebaker.
Yay.
Okay, Councilman Rosenka.
Okay,
Councilman Henderson.
Yay.
Councilman Butler.
Yay.
Councilman Welch.
Yay.
And Councilman Sorensen.
Yay.
Yeas have it. Next is approval of the fine screen wastewater treatment plant bid.
Mayor, Council, this is a motion to approve notice of award to Huber Technology for wastewater treatment plant influent fine screen project in the amount of $178,500 with mayor to sign.
Can you say again the amount?
$178,500 with the mayor to sign.
Mayor.
Yes.
So this is the one that you've been planning for, is that correct?
That's correct.
Bid on that?
Yep, we did design and we brought the proposal for design and everything, and then we sent it out, and only one person could qualify from our design and specification, which is Huber. As you can see, hopefully you got that information that Lakeside and West Tech could not complete the specifications.
Now, will this work be done by Public Works, or will this be
It
100%?
will be done by Public Works. This was the screen that was probably going to be in the 400,000 to 500,000, and so we designed with the help of our Keller and Associates and decided to install it ourselves to save a tremendous amount of money. So yes, this is that.
Right. And again, how much was the amount it would cost if we had it all done by somebody else? Roughly.
Anywhere between 4 to 5. There's not a lot of modifications, but ultimately there's electrical and all that stuff to get it modified in. So I think that the number that we got from Keller was like 4 1/4. So
Pretty good.
Yes.
Is this replacing the existing?
It is. I know most of you were not here, but we bought an Hendrix from the city of Bend back in, I want to say 2010. We've got it for 30,000. We put another 30,000 in it. So it's been a great screen. Unfortunately, it's paid its dues and it's time to get it out of processing. And so this new screen will replace that Hendrix.
So this is simply a bid, it's not a contract or anything like that?
That's correct.
Just a bit.
Sorry for the confusion.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
based on all the information provided, I make a motion to approve the award to Hoover Technology for the wastewater treatment plant influence fine screen project in the amount of $178,500, and the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Second.
It's a tie again. The main motion was made by President Nebaker, and the tie second was President Councilman Henderson and Councilman Welch. Any further discussion for approval of the fine screen wastewater treatment plant bid by Hubert Technology, was it? In the amount of $178,500, mayor to sign. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Okay, are there any abstentions? Hearing none, ayes have it. It was unanimous. Motion carries. All right, time for the department activity reports. Director Sullivan.
Good evening again. You have my report. Are there any questions on that? The only thing I have to share is we did have a training scheduled for March 30th at the courthouse that has been canceled. So I figured so, but I need to announce it anyways. All right? Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk.
You have my department report and also you have the financial report for February. Are there any questions on any of that? Just an update on audit. I did receive the draft audit this last week. There were a few corrections that I sent back to the auditor in order to get it modified. And so we'll probably be presenting that next council meeting. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Chief Christensen.
Mayor and council, you have a copy of my report. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Is Alice Kelly on the phone? Can you call in? All right. Chief Cook.
I can play the part of Alice.
No, that's fine.
Better than Jake.
Chief Cook.
Tony, are you done?
Yes.
All right, council and mayor, you have my report. One thing I do want to tell you is that my staff is all well. I do have 2 people on vacation right now, which I think is good that we could do that, coming up to the times that are going to continue and get more serious as we roll. So I'm glad that we were able to let some have spring break and they will come back refreshed. Questions?
I have just one question.
Yes.
In reading it, I don't know if I got it right. You're asking for a third drone? I thought I read something on it about purchasing another drone.
No, not a third, a second.
Okay.
But not a
I've
third.
already discussed that one.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, thanks.
Director Siemens.
Mayor, council, you have my report. Any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Cannell. You've been busy tonight, huh? Today? This week?
Yes, we have been, but happy to help. Do you guys have any questions on anything?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just curiosity, Is this normal, the delay on the transmission of that?
It kind of is, and I'm glad you asked. One thing we might want to consider, if this is going to become somewhat of a new norm and conference calling and streaming and so forth, is that we might look at what it would cost to update some of the equipment in here. These microphones and that system's the original for the building in the mid-90s. Ideally, we would want to get a camera that, you think about when somebody's doing a presentation, a PowerPoint or something, the public's not going to be able to see that unless we get a camera that's able to move and focus in on that. And also get it to where the audio system ties in with everything, so that I know Councilman Henderson was texting me and saying, hey, I can't necessarily hear people that are at the podium, so please speak up. But so if that's something that the council wants us to look into, what that cost would be to upgrade some of that equipment and get that going, if you foresee that being the new norm, we're happy to do that. Just let us know.
Can you give us a ballpark estimate of what you think it might run?
I really have no idea because I have no experience in an audio video type world, and what it takes to tie all of those components together. So I'll have to research that.
All right.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think that'd be very vital, even without this situation. I think there's so many people that aren't on the internet anymore. They want to see things here. So I think that'd be a really good option for us to explore that. If you would do that, that'd be appreciated.
Certainly. I'll report back in the next 1 or 2 meetings, depending on how things are going. That's good. Good. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we don't have an engineer tonight. The only thing is adjournment. Chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to make a couple comments real quick. Good.
Just a minute, just a minute.
Mayor, I really appreciate all the ethics you've been providing to the council. I think I've been watching the news as much as I can, not just for doom and gloom, but the mayor's been providing us with updates. I know Chief Christian has done the same thing and everybody else, but I really appreciate it. I think it keeps us in the loop. We're on top of it as fast as probably anybody else. So thank you, Mayor. I really do appreciate those updates.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. We're here to serve. Anything else before?
Thank you, Mayor, I appreciate it.
Councilman Henderson, I'm trying to get a motion out of you. Okay.
I make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second it.
It's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Aye.
Ayes.
Isn't that the FCC?
Yes.